Om Guruve Namah. Namaskar. So, I have another interesting presentation for you, which is related to defining lust and multiple relationships through jyotish. Okay, and I am going to use one of the classics of jyotish for this, which is Jataka Parijata. So, couple of shlokas from that, and we will see few cases. Okay. Now, just a bit of background. I've seen typically people trying to understand their spouse, who their spouse will be, etc., from the seventh house. While to an extent it can be done, but more probably with the seventh lord, but not really from the Rashi. You got, if you really want to understand the spouse, you have to see the Navamsha. But what does this seventh house in the Rashi show? It shows one's own attitude or experience related to seventh house or relationships. Okay, so it is your house, it is your bhava. So bhava meaning your feeling, emotions, your attitude, etc. Okay, so hence how this bhava is, how the lord of it is, etc., will show how your experience is in relationships and how your attitude is. So if you want to see lust, etc., and having multiple relationships, problems in relationships, etc., this is the house which will show this. Another important thing that we got to see is, apart from the house and the lord, is the karaka. For every house there is a karaka. Karaka is very important because that is sort of giving the overarching experience that is going to happen. Okay, my Guruji calls it as a hand of God. It is like what destiny will throw at you, and that is what is Venus is. So hence, if Venus is afflicted generally, it can cause problems in relationships if there are other afflictions as well. Okay, and that is what we will see over here, how Jataka Parijata beautifully explains the importance of house as well as the lord, the karaka as well as the lord, both of them together, right? So without further ado, let's get into the dictums. So this is from the 14th chapter, and this is just the initial shlokas, the first and the second shlokas. So, I mean, I have not put the Sanskrit over here. I've just straight away explained it in simple English. Okay, so that it's easier to remember. So, if Venus or the seventh lord is in seventh house with Rahu and Ketu, okay, uh, not Rahu and Ketu, but Rahu or Ketu. I mean, either one of them, any of these nodes. Okay, then the person is, the Sanskrit word uses Jara. Jara is typically meaning an adult, someone who is doing adultery. Okay, is having other multiple relationships. Okay, now this won't happen if the seventh house is a benefic sign or there is a drishti or yuti of Jupiter. Now let's understand the shloka little by little. So it is saying Venus or the seventh lord in the seventh house. Okay. Now, if it is, even if it is one of these, but if it is both of this, then you can definitely be very sure about it. If Venus and the seventh lord are in seventh house, then you have three things affected: Venus, the seventh lord, and the seventh house. All three of them are affected. Okay. And the fact is, when you have the seventh lord in seventh house, it is very strong. So you are going to experience, you're going to have all the experiences. So hence you may find relationships very coming very easily to you. For example, if it were in Dusthana and all, you may want, but it may not come. But here it is coming easily. Hence you have the opportunities for adultery as well. Okay. Then it is saying seventh lord in Dusthana and malefic signs is giving mediocre results. Now note here, another second level which is important is whether the sign is benefic or malefic. So even if the first dictum, which is Venus or seventh lord, is in seventh house and with Rahu or Ketu, okay, please ignore this plus. It's either Rahu or Ketu, obviously, right? We are talking of the Rashi chart. But if it is a benefic sign and there is a drishti yuti of Jupiter, then it is not that much of a problem. Even if the person may have temptations, etc., he is able to, not succumb to it or overcome it, etc. He may, maybe at times he may fall for it, but then he may try and reform himself. So that there is it depends on what is the strength of each planets and all that you got to judge looking at the particular chart. Now, why especially Jupiter is because Venus is exalted in the sign of Pisces, which is ruled by Jupiter. Okay. Now, and Jupiter is the greatest benefic in the chart. Okay, in most charts, in general, its nature is of a benefic planet, and not just a benefic in the sense of giving you good things, but also giving you good values. Okay, and second thing is when we say exaltation, exaltation shows very high gunas meaning qualities, virtues, etc. So your qualities, or you even if at times you may be tempted, but there is you may have certain level of morality, etc., which will not allow you to succumb to it. That is what it means. On the other hand, when there is too much of malefic aspect, etc., then you, especially if it is in the seventh house, that is in a Kendra, you will have opportunities and you will succumb to it. Basically, you will make wrong decisions, bad decisions. Now, if it is in a Dusthana, mediocre results, but by mediocre results, what it means over here is that you may not get that many opportunities. Okay, but your mind is not in the right way. Okay, and if by chance you get an opportunity, you may do something bad, or you may also do bad karma to make something happen. Okay, uh, in general, it is saying seventh lord plus Venus in a malefic sign makes one lustful. It's saying kamadhi. That is a mind. Dhi or the intellect is in kama, is geared towards sexual cravings, etc. Okay. Now here is one standard kind of example. It's not a specific chart. So here we have I have taken Jupiter itself as the seventh lord. It is in a malefic sign. Okay, so this second dictum, seventh lord in Dusthana in a malefic sign and aspected by malefics with Rahu, Ketu, and Shani, etc. And in this case, Venus is also debilitated. So that will not give a good result over here. So while Venus is not in the seventh house, this can be equally problematic. Okay. Obviously, we have to see the other things, whether there are some positives. Is the Lagnisha strong? See, for example, in all of these cases, so these dictums don't take it as a given that okay, if this is there then the person is going to be an altered. No, don't go by that, because for example, if the Lagnesha is strong, if the ninth lord is strong, etc., there are some other powerful combinations, or there is exaltation, etc., then the person, then this may not happen at all. And secondly, this is something we are looking at only at the Rashi chart. So many people may be born in a span of 2 hours. It's not necessary that everyone will have the same thing. You got to confirm it through the Navamsha, which is the Varga chart, right? So you got to see if there are similar problems in the Navamsha and then confirm. Okay, and then there may be some other issues, maybe some problems in the Panchanga. There could be some problems with the planets in terms of their degrees. They could be in Sandhi, there could be combustion, Graha Yuddha, etc. When all of these things add up, then you can be very sure there is a problem. Okay. Now let's look at few charts. So this is chart of a guy called David Clark. He he was a criminal. He committed murder and he had multiple relationships. In fact, he forced the wife of the person whom he murdered to marry him. Okay, so that kind of person we are talking about. So here we have the seventh lord as Venus. Okay, this is Scorpio Lagna. Seventh lord is Venus, and Venus is in Capricorn, Makara Rashi, a malefic sign. Not only that, it is with Saturn and Ketu, and Mars and Rahu, wherein Mars is debilitated, though it is retrograde, but it is debilitated. It is aspecting this Venus. So Saturn, Ketu, Rahu, and Mars, four planets are aspecting, and there is no benefit. It's not as if Jupiter is aspecting it, or anything. There's no influence whatsoever of Jupiter on Venus. So, and you see, another reason is, note here the Lagnesha. Lagnesha is how you are thinking, how your intellect is. So that is also one you have a Mars with Rahu in Nichasthana, and that too in Badhaka Rashi in Cancer, and the other one is Ketu with Saturn over here aspected by Rahu and Mars, and with this afflicted Venus. So all this indicate the problem with this person. Okay, let's look at the next chart. This is David Connors. This person was a pedophile and a rapist. I mean, he in fact raped young boys. Okay, and he was married. He had children as well. He had two girls as daughters. So this guy, he has it's a pretty similar chart. Only the lagna is probably changing over here. The lagna is Cancer, but the other things, Rahu and Mars are in Cancer, and you have Saturn and Venus. Now again, this is in the seventh house. The seventh house itself is afflicted. In the previous case, if you notice, seventh house is not afflicted. Here, the seventh house is afflicted, Venus is afflicted, and the dispositor of Venus is Saturn. Saturn is also afflicted. See, now when Venus is in this case, uh, in this case, for example, Venus is the Karaka and Saturn is the seventh lord. Both are afflicted over here. Okay. Similar situation is there in the previous case as well, but at least over there the seventh house itself is not afflicted. Here the seventh house is also afflicted. So there is no way to come out of it. Now here you may say the lord of this sign, moon, is fine, but you see the lagna itself is afflicted. So even if moon, the lagna lord is okay, but even though there you see this moon is also afflicted by Mars and Saturn. Two malefics are having drishti, and Jupiter is no way protecting either this Lagnesha moon or this sign. Jupiter is having an aspect over here, but then Rahu and Mars aspected by Saturn is too much for even Jupiter to deal with. And you see, this Jupiter is in own sign, so really speaking, it requires Uchanata moon to really deliver the results, but that is also not happening over here. So it's caught in a vicious cycle over here. Even if you see the Navamsha, you have Mars in Lagna aspected by Saturn. So that shows a very, very aggressive mind. Okay. Now you've seen very dire cases. Now I'll show you a slightly different case where there is affliction but not that much. And you can see then that does give the multiple relationships, but it is not as bad. So this is the chart of John Fraser. He was an actor and an author. He had multiple relationships and he was gay. I'm sorry, I mentioned he had gap. It's actually gay. Okay. So his orientation was that he was a gay. Now here again we have Vrishchika Lagna with seventh lord Venus in the third house, which is not a good house in general, and it is a malefic sign as well, and Mars is aspecting it. Okay. Now, however, having said that, you see that the seventh house is not having any afflictions whatsoever. You will see that this is similar as the previous, the first case which we talked about, the homicide, the person who was a murderer. But then there is one point. See, Venus cannot both be seventh lord as well as the Karaka. If Venus becomes the seventh lord, which is in case of Aries Lagna or Scorpio Lagna, then the dispositor of Venus behaves like the Karaka. Okay, so Venus hands over the Karaka behavior to its dispositor, and that is Saturn over here. This Saturn is not having any affliction, it's in a benefic sign, it is Atma Karaka, and it is aspected by Jupiter, which is aspecting its own sign. That changes the character altogether. So that's why you may have the same kind of dictum, seventh lord in a malefic sign, etc. Yes, there is sexual craving, but there is no criminal behavior, unlike the previous cases. Okay, so this is something you got to understand. Like also, if you see the Lagnesha, okay, Mars is debilitated in Badaka sign, but it is also getting Neecha Bhanga by this moon being in Kendra. Okay, so so overall, this has a much better situation than the previous two cases. Okay, so I will be presenting more similar dictums. So, for example, I have made a chart. This is the next few dictums which are there in Jataka Parijata. We'll cover this later. But this was, I would just wanted to make a short video on that so that it's much more easier to digest. Okay. Thank you so much for patiently listening to me. Namaste. Bye for now.